Rachel Huff, president and founder of Victoire Co, joins host Doug Simon on PR's Top Pros Talk.
Rachel, you often talk about the client agency relationship being broken. From your perspective as a search consultant, what's the leading factor that leads to a client agency partnership ending?
I would say the number one factor is the team and team turnover. Some of it's as a result of layoffs. There have been a lot of layoffs happening in agencies at the senior level in particular. Another thing that's interesting is sort of that path that used to be folks would maybe hop around within the agency world and eventually go into an in-house role. I think that path has really changed over the past couple of years where a lot of folks are just going out on their own now. So you have folks even at the mid-level or senior level who are deciding to start up their own shops or become consultants. So clients are losing their go-to people that they bought on for at the beginning of the pitch process, and they're frustrated by that. They feel like they don't have that same team that they signed up for.
Are clients getting concerned about results? And is there anything agencies can do? Because is it a factor of them not being on the same page, or is it just the agency not delivering what's being promised?
I think lack of results is a huge factor that clients are really concerned about. And I think part of this is because of the evolution of PR agencies. And, they used to really have earned media at their core. They were storytellers, but have evolved over time to become all things. So, really position themselves as, in many cases, integrated marketing agencies. But when a client is hiring a PR agency, they're largely looking for earned media results. And if PR agencies can't deliver on that, then it's, the clients decide that it's time to make a change.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that because our whole business is doing media tours. It's about earning media, and we've seen a huge growth since 2019, and that's also been our niche part of the industry wide. It's happened across the industry, and it is challenging getting that media today. What are clients looking for in agency pitches? Is that changing at all?
So the pitch process itself, when they're looking for new partners, yeah, it's a great question. I think that one of the big mistakes that agencies make is they go into pitch mode and they're trying to sell to clients and they forget that it's really a relationship. It's about building relationships. And I believe that it's really important throughout the process. And we all know every review process looks different, but it's so important to start to mimic the working relationship. Don't spend a lot of time on your agency credentials. They're talking to you and they're talking to you for a reason. They know that hopefully they know that you're capable of delivering and that your services match what they're looking for. They're really trying to get to know you as a team. And that gets back to that's not only one of the reasons that clients fire agencies, but it's also one of the number one reasons that they hire agencies. So really making sure that they get a chance to get to know the team.
Yeah, and you talk about that as an important point. So let's say the client has signed on. From a client perspective, what are some of the things they can do to make sure they build that solid relationship and it's a successful partnership? And then we'll get in next what the agency side needs to do. Let's look at the client side first.
Sure. So I think starting off, and this actually goes back to when they're running the search in the first place, but then also when they're then onboarding the new partner is really be having very clear direction. For me, that largely comes down to the brief. And I think a lot of folks don't spend a lot of time on the brief. They quickly, write down, okay, here's what we're looking for, here's what we need, and they put it out there, and then they just collect proposals, and they don't really spend the time and effort into thinking about what goes into the brief, and that is so important. Really being clear on what success looks like, making sure that the agency partner understands your expectations. So like I said, this isn't just when you're looking for a partner, but then when you're onboarding them, you're really being clear on what success looks like. And that also allows you over the course of the partnership to have something to check back on and to say, oh, we're meeting our expectations, or, we talked about this as the results that we were hoping to achieve. We're not achieving that, and sort of giving that opportunity to course correct. Other things that come to mind for me are just open communication in general, and just establishing that back and forth, and not being afraid to address issues when they arise. Going along with that is just transparency. If an agency feels like they can't deliver for a reason, just being really upfront about that with the client, so that it again becomes a discussion and you're partners. You're not just seen as a vendor.
Yeah, and you touched on that, but on the agency side is, building that trust. How do they go about doing that to make sure the relationship will be successful?
That is one of the reasons that some agency client relationships last for many years is because they've built this really solid trust. And I think things that an agency can do is, and this may sound a little counterintuitive, but not saying yes to everything that the client asks you to do or expects of you. Really showing them that you're not a vendor, you're a partner, you're an advisor to them. And so that means poking holes sometimes. And of course, when you're new to the partnership, you want to tread lightly on this, but they're hiring you to be their experts, right? Like not only an extra set of arms and legs. So it's not just about saying no, it's about saying, well, what if we did this instead and bringing new solutions to them.
Any recommendations for an agency on how to navigate that process to maintain the strong relationship? Is sometimes, it might come, the agency might be aware it's happening, but other times it just happens.
It is the reality of agency business. I mean, folks don't stay in the agency world or in one agency forever, but I think they have to, again, it goes back to transparency. They have to be really transparent about that with their clients if there's a change on the client team. I mean, just trying to sweep it under the rug is never going to work. I think sometimes what we see happen, and I hear about this a lot from clients, is that they try to replace a senior person with a more junior person on the account or someone who doesn't have the same, you know, not as seasoned or really the same level of expertise or industry expertise. And clients notice that. And so you have to be really upfront about that and say, here's who the new member of the team is. Here's why. If, for example, it requires your agency making a new hire, or there's going to be some short period during which they're not going to have that same level of person on the team, just being upfront about that, because clients notice it, and when their team changes, they feel the pain of it, and they will eventually make a change if it isn't addressed.
If someone leaves, bring up both a more senior person and then a junior person on the account so the two are teaming up together so you won't have that trust issue and instant expectation
Mm.
of fall off. Now, there's also change on the client side. We know CMOs are being
Mm.
transitioned much faster than they've ever been. So when there is that kind of sea change, how does the agency try and retain the client? Because that can
Mm.
often be challenging. And what's best practice to find out the new direction that they want to
Yeah.
go?
That's a great question. Yeah, there is a lot of talk about CMO turnover. I actually saw a really interesting piece of research yesterday. It's from last year, but it was talking about, it actually showed that when CMOs are turning over, they're often going on to bigger and better things, whether it's a CMO role at an even bigger organization, or in many cases, we're actually seeing, not many cases, but we're seeing examples of CMOs going on to CEO position. I think the reality of it is that leadership changes client side are always going to be one of the top reasons for agency reviews. It's just the reality of the business. I think things that agencies can do to sort of mitigate the issue, or try to avoid it going up for review. First of all, is just about really introducing yourselves to the new leader on the client side and getting visibility to them. You want to get to know them, ask them questions about their background, but then also make sure that they get to help them get to know you. Not only what services you can offer them, but really what makes you an invaluable partner to the organization. If you've been working with the organization for a long time, really show them that you have that historical knowledge and deep understanding of the business. Showcasing past results can be a really good thing, right? Showing them, here's some of the great work that we've done. At the same time, you want to be mindful of the fact that they were brought in for a reason. So if there's some indication that they are going to be going in a different direction as far as their marketing or communications priorities, that may mean that really spending too much time focusing on past results isn't necessarily a good thing.
Right.
Because that's not what they're looking for moving forward. So don't dwell on that. Maybe show them what you've done, but show them also what you're capable of. The last point on this, that is, I believe, is the most important. I talk a lot when I'm speaking with agencies about their business development. I have this philosophy of saying no to grow the business. And I believe that agencies have to be realistic with themselves about whether or not they have a high likelihood of winning, or the case of new leadership, actually retaining the business. Um, you know, we've seen, there was actually research that came out last year about the cost for agencies. This was from the 4As and the ANA. It was about the cost to agencies of participating in a pitch process. And it
Right.
found, so it was, I mean, this is, may not be the exact number, of course, for every agency, but it found it was $200,000 was the cost on average to an agency to participate in a review. And interestingly, that amount doubled for the incumbent if the incumbent agency decided to participate in a competitive review if their client put the business up for review. So if you think about that, if you're the agency of record, if you're working with a client and a new leader comes in and decides to put it up for review, recognize that you're going to be spending a lot of time to try to retain the business. So you want to feel really confident that you have a really good shot of winning the business. And if there's red flags there and signs pointing at the fact that maybe they are coming to the position with a stable of agencies that they've worked with in the past, and they're just kind of inviting you just for the sake of inviting you as incumbent, maybe give some real thought to whether or not you want to participate in that review.
Rachel, there's been a great review. I'm sure people both on the client side and agency side will find tremendous value in it. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.